We are live now.
Live and direct.
Okay. So, yeah, what I was going to mention there was because Sally was asking me when it comes to like jujitsu, like, when it comes to like, people I train with down here, how far do I really think I can take it? And there's two guys that really were very inspiring as far as jujitsu progression for me. One, Hodger Gracie, who's like renowned as the absolute top champ in terms top competitor in terms of jujitsu in the gi, and then Marcus Buchecha, who's like again, he's like a rung down from Roger Gracie. I'm pretty sure he's run like 10 world championships or whatever. But the big thing about these guys is that they didn't always have training partners that were even close to their level for a majority of their training. And like definitely Roger, he couldn't, like, most of the time he wasn't training with people better than him. Far, like, and they usually weren't even close to the people he was competing with. But within his training, he did things to make things a little bit more difficult for himself within training. Like, he'll put himself in disadvantaged positions, he'll put himself in compromising positions and drill bad places to work himself out of so that he can make progression, rather than just like, I'm just going to find a harder opponent and a harder opponent and a harder opponent to try to progress. He did things within his training to simulate that and to make it harder for himself so that he could progress. I think that's a big part of, like, if you're not at the greatest school all the time, you can do that. But also when it comes to the gym, exactly what we were talking about, you can add things into your training that you can progress with other than just increasing load.
Yeah, and in the case of jiu-jitsu, somebody wouldn't have to be better than you for you just to start out on your back.
Nope.
You could start out in whatever position. You could say, hey, look, I'm pretty sure the guy that I'm going against is pretty damn strong. He's probably going to be able to do A, B, and C to me and get me in these compromising positions. I already know that I'm going to end up there, so I'll just start there. And the other people that you're training with, they're not such slouches that they can't be productive in having you be able to get through some of that process. So
that's exactly what I did when I was getting ready to train with Chad. I had all of my training partners start on side control every single round. Start on side control, start on top of me. We're going to start from here and I'm going to work on escaping. Then if I escape, I'll try to submit you. But you're all going to start here, because if he gets on top of me, I need to be able to escape his 300-pound ass.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different ways of doing it. And today we're talking about, applying this into the gym and getting the most or getting more out of less. A lot of times it's not always about the progression of using more weight, although ultimately I think that's usually the goal. But there's other ways that you can stimulate. There's other ways that you can end up with a great result. I think it's always a decent idea to work your way backwards. Don't forget the reason on like, what's the reason why you're doing this exercise? And I think we get lost really quickly because we get excited. It's easy to put on more weight and it's easy to forget. But what's the purpose of the exercise? What's the purpose of working out? We have coming up, we have Brian McKenzie on the show. We'll be able to talk to him a lot about breathing. And breathing is one of those things that it could add another element to your training that maybe you otherwise weren't thinking of, because you can do a lot of your training with nasal breathing. You've been doing that for a while. I've been doing it a lot with warm-ups and stuff like that. But for me, I haven't been patient enough to progress through the rest of the workout, being able to do that. I've done it through some cardio sessions and things like that, but I haven't done it for a full lifting session. And so it would be interesting to see what kind of impact that would have on my training. And then there's so many different ways, even within that model, of increasing my intensity and getting better at that without even using any more weight.
And since you mentioned the Brian McKenzie episode that's going to come out, guys, I'm excited for that one, because we go into so many things that you guys are literally going to be able to listen to that episode and take into your training to make progress immediately. And it'll permeate not just throughout, your progression in terms of strength training and all that good stuff, but sleep, mood, feel, like all of that stuff. There's so much in that episode that you'll probably want to listen to it twice and take some notes. Just saying right now.
It'll be out President's Day.
Oh, President's Day.
There you go. So you guys got something to do on your day off.
Freaking awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. Like, as far as, progressing as lifters, when we look at what we're trying to do, most of us are just like more weight, more weight, more weight, more weight, more weight. But that kind of, I guess, idea leads most people to getting injured because within the goal of moving more weight, you start trying to move weight that you shouldn't be moving, then you move that weight badly, and then that turns into you being injured. So, it's that the guys that are able to spend their lives lifting, they're not always working with heavier weights. I mean, I see Stan Efferding squatting he really good weight still, but he does it for a lot of reps. Right. He's not just squatting 800 pounds because in the past, what was his squat?
Oh yeah, he squatted like 900 pounds. Yeah.
Okay, he doesn't need to do that to hold on to his muscle or to continue to progress. He does different things. And I think that that's super important if you want to do this for a long time.
Yeah, just again, what's the goal? What are you trying to do? There's a lot of great lifters out there that we can look to. I always like to point to someone like a Jay Cutler. I don't think Jay Cutler really ever used over 5 plates in a squat, but he would do like sets of 12. And it was after he did like 100 reps of leg extensions. He would do like 4 sets of 25 leg extensions to warm up, get a lot of blood into the legs, and then he would, go 315, 405, and 500 pounds, and his squats were amazing. He's got his butt on the ground. But the point is like that's not very hard for him. I mean, I don't know what he could have handled at that time, but I'm just imagining he could have threw on 7 or 8 plates and been able to do a couple reps with that as well.
Yeah.
But that wouldn't have led into what his end goal of what he was trying to do. And so, that's an extreme case of somebody that, was a 4-time Mr. Olympia and someone who's over 300 pounds. But for a lot of other people, that same thing just looks like this. Let's say that your best squat is 405. Well, a training weight might be normally 315, might be 365 on the higher end, right? Well, if we did leg extensions beforehand, we did some sort of pre-exhaust. What if you did leg extensions and then, again, let's back it up to what the goal is. Let's just hypothetically say the goal is to have bigger legs. You're not going to find information that says that you absolutely have to train heavy all the time in order to have large legs. So that would lead me to believe that we got some freedom and we can do things differently every once in a while. Training heavy, yes, we understand the value of that because when you're able to handle more weight, you're able to have more intensity, more volume through going heavier. But you can also have more volume by just doing more exercises or more sets or more reps, or you can condense your training down into, having some training density, which brings about a whole nother intensity and can hit hypertrophy in a slightly different way. Started out a workout with 4 sets of 25 of leg extensions, none of them really to failure, but getting a good pump in the legs.
Yep.
Then you went to leg press. You push the weight on there a little bit and you do, 4 sets of 10 or something like that. You're pre-exhausted from the leg extension. So you'll most likely use a little bit less weight on those sets of 10. Allow the amount of reps that you selected to dictate the amount of weight that you use. You also want to have your form dictate the amount of reps that you use. You also want to have your rest period dictate the amount of weight that you're using. Because if you go to use a certain amount of weight and you break down on rep number 8 and rep number 9 and 10 are really shady and it's set number 1, that's not great representation of what we're trying to do. You probably break yourself down a little bit too much. It's probably excessive. Not that it won't be beneficial, but it's probably just not necessary. You progress through that. You get your sets done. You do all 40 reps, 4 sets of 10. You do them all very clean. Then you move over into your squats. And now all of a sudden, the 315 to 365 weight that you're used to using for training, because you normally would squat around 405 for a max, now you're probably reducing that by 100 pounds. Now we're probably talking, you would probably have a great training day for sets of 8 or sets of 10 or 12 with anywhere between 225 to 275. On top of that, you're going to get a lot out of that.
Yeah.
So it's a great route to go. Most likely you're going to be a lot more safe. Like your back's not going to be all tired and sore. You'll be sore. I mean, your legs will get crushed from a workout like that. But you're not going to have that same, when you lift really heavy, that shit stays in your body for a while, a couple of days, a lot of times, until you start to really accumulate some awareness of it. But it takes a long time. So that's the kind of stuff that we're talking about here today. There's so many different ways of even manipulating that workout in and of itself that you can make more beneficial without adding more weight.
And how many times have we heard people say that, maybe they don't get sore on a regular basis, but then they try a workout like that where they maybe go like a full range of motion versus like doing, the half reps or whatever it may be, even if they're accidental pause or half reps. But yeah, like all of a sudden now it's like, wait, you squatted less and somehow you're feeling it way more this time around. Like, what's that all about?
Yeah.
It's crazy, right?
No, it makes total sense. I mean, you activate more muscle tissues, but the big thing that I think we should focus on from that statement is like your form on all of these movements. Okay, because again, in the whole pursuit of trying to get bigger, stronger, and faster, right? We want to do it fast, so we want to just increase weight, but we start to develop bad habits with squats or bad habits when benching or deadlifting just to try to move more weight. And then we end up getting injured. But if you're focused on form initially, you know, we had Mike Israel. He's a big advocate of, you know, full range of motion.
Right.
If you start focusing on going through full ROM with everything, and it's going to take longer to progress, but I guarantee you're going to be able to progress for a much longer amount of time. The outcomes are going to be much better for you. And then on top of that, what I like to do is not only focus on form, but then slow aspects of your lift down. An example of this is your deadlift. A lot of us, when we're deadlifting and we're trying to progress the deadlift, whether it be sumo or conventional, we'll do the lift and we'll just let the weight fall on the ground. I think it was when I started training here, you mentioned control your eccentric.
Right.
You told me, hey, just take a little bit more time when you bring the bar back to the ground. After a few months, my deadlift started to increase, right? And that's something that I do up till now. I never really, no matter what weight I use, I always control that weight back down, and it's easy. I can control that whole aspect of that movement, but initially it wasn't. Initially, I did not have the muscle control to slowly
it's really hard
bring my body down. But Ed Cohn, I think, also talks about that.
Yeah,
Makes a big
absolutely.
difference.
Absolutely. I think, you know, you want to have enough control over most of the lifts that you do where you can reverse them at any time is the way I like to look at it. That kind of Stan Efferding type of model where he says you're loading up a spring. You know, as you go down in the squat, you're kind of loading up a spring. And if you had a spring, it would be able to reverse at any time. And also, even better with the analogy of a spring is that the lower that it goes, the more it's going to spring up. And if you learn how to really do the lift properly, you'll feel that. Those are a lot of great squatters who say, I can full squat my ass to the ground more than I can do a half squat with. And you're like, that doesn't make any sense. But they're used to rebounding off their own hamstrings and used to hitting the hole in that way and reversing up out of there. And they have such impeccable form. Them going full range of motion doesn't negatively impact them in any way, where most people who don't have the mobility to do full range of motion, they end up having to correct an error on the way up with a big weight. And that's, and that's where you end up in a very compromised position. But your form and technique matters so much because you're not even training the right muscles a lot of times. You know, while you're doing a squat, you are working on a lot of different muscle groups, but a lot of times people are trying to target the quads. I would say a large percentage of the time, maybe with the exception of some power lifters, people are almost always trying to train their quads. And if they get some butt and hamstrings out of it, I don't think they're mad about it. But I think what they would be mad about is that if they're not attacking the quads much in the squat. And we see that a lot because a lot of people will sit way back in their squats, or they really won't get on a good angle to where they're really getting into the quads. And so that's something that you'll have to learn. Or you might just learn that squats don't work that great for your quads because of your body type. And when we talk about full range of motion, and we had Mike Israel on the show, what I would like to say, something that we didn't really talk about a lot on the show, but he did mention it briefly, and I think it may have gotten overlooked. It's your full range of motion. You know, that's the key factor right there. It's if you go down in a bench press and you bring the weight down and you get 3/4 of the way down and something's weird in the shoulder and you don't like that bottom range and you need to train it differently, train it differently. Don't worry about what everybody else is doing. Same thing with your squat. If you can feel your squat in your quads from doing a quarter squat, from doing a partial range of motion squat, don't sweat what other people are telling you. And don't worry about not having this perfect, epic Olympic lifting squat where your ass is on the ground. Those are things that you can progress towards, and those are things you can work on, at some other time. But really, if you're trying to get hypertrophy and you're trying to get into the muscle, whatever range of motion that is for you. We were doing some lateral raises the other day, And usually with lateral raises, I like to bring them to the front/side, not like totally the front, but kind of like, I guess more towards the front of my thighs.
Mm-hmm.
And then I like to try to push up with my elbows as much as I can and have my elbows be higher than where my wrists are, where the weight is, which is hard for me because my shoulders freaking they just kill when I do that.
Yeah.
So I started doing a range of motion where I was already about quarter of the way out away from my body. And I was just going really just a tiny range of motion, because anything higher than that, I just started doing a lift the wrong way and I wasn't getting enough out of my shoulders. So it's your range of motion. It's whatever's going to work best for you, and go by how it feels.
Yeah. You know, when you were mentioning right there, first off, your your personal range of motion, that's a super important thing, because not everybody is going to be comfortable squatting ass to grass with load. But number two, when you were mentioning, you know, my shoulder's killed or whatever, some people hear that and they're like, oh yeah, the pain, right? This is one thing I think is a skill that we all need to be able to develop. We need to be able to tell the difference between unsafe joint pain that is not good and you shouldn't try to work through, and muscular pain where your muscles are getting, you know, your quads are getting fried, right? And you're working, your quads are burning. That's okay. Because I think a lot of people, I was having a call with a guy yesterday and he was saying, oh yeah, whenever I squat to this point, my knees hurt, but I've just been trying to progress. I'm like, have you been squatting the same way the whole time and your knees have been feeling the same way? It's like, yeah. I'm like, when you lower the load, do you still feel that in your knees that way? He's like, yeah. I'm like, maybe we should take a look at like the way you're actually squatting, because you shouldn't be feeling that pain in your actual knee.
Right.
If you're feeling a burn in your quads, understandable. Pain in your knee, let's not work through that.
Right.
Let's not. So I think that's one.
Maybe find another exercise.
Find another exercise, or find a different way of doing that exercise that doesn't cause you pain in that joint there, because, you know, there's this idea that people have that like, oh yeah, if I'm feeling something, I gotta work through it a little bit.
Gain.
Yeah. You don't work through joint pain that way. You know, muscle soreness or like your muscles getting pumped, your quads are getting pumped on a leg extension and it burns a little bit. That's a good pain to work through. But not if your knees are starting to feel like they're going to freaking shatter under a leg extension. Don't work through that. You know?
I think it's a good idea to know that it's not going to get any better. You know, like when something starts to hurt really bad, you're not going to add more weight and it's not going to all of a sudden feel better. The only opportunity for it to feel better is for you to change something in the other direction. You don't want to increase intensity at that point. If you're doing some squats and you're like, man, the knee feels really weird. Sometimes you got to double check. Sometimes you got to like do the same weight twice and be like, yep, okay, that sucks, that hurts. And that's okay. And then you just, you take it on the chin and you move on to another exercise, which is not easy to do. But you could also change the range of motion of the exercise, change the exercise up a little bit. I know when I was competing that I might go and do a squat with a straight bar, do a few warm-ups and be like, man, that's just not great today. You know, my back is really sore. Then I was like, well, I think I could probably still get a good training stimulus for my lower body. I am a little sore. I am a little beat up, but let me just try a different bar. Then I would slide a different bar in there. I'd grab a safety squat bar or a cambered bar or something like that. Or maybe I would totally switch and say, you know what? I'm not going to even, like, I'm scheduled to max effort for that day. I'm just going to actually do a bunch of practice squats or a bunch of speed squats. There's nothing wrong with practicing your craft. There's nothing wrong with saying, okay, I was supposed to squat 315 for set to 6 today, but it looks like I'm just going to use like maybe 135, 185 and work on my timing. There's always stuff to work on. We all have stuff to work on. So that could be an opportunity that you take, reduce some of the weight if you're, feeling banged up and feeling a little beat up, and just switch that focus a little bit.
Like that episode that we did with Jesse Burdick when he was really able, you guys went deep on the ideas of conjugate. I think that's where conjugate really, really shines, because it's not just the idea. And you hear people saying like, oh, if you're not increasing volume, you're not progressing. If you're not increasing volume over time, you're not progressing. But conjugate, you have days that you're just working on your speed and you lower that load, right? And that in a way is going to allow you to progress at some aspect of that lift without going to your max or 90% or whatever, and feeling yourself fatigued that way. Because a lot of people, they're touching 90% type loads every single week.
Right.
And they don't need to be doing that to be able to make progress.
Real quick, Mark, how was that beef stick?
That beef stick was amazing. Yeah. Jalapeno Piedmontese beef stick.
Did you eat it on air?
No, but
No.
I just noticed I didn't see you eat it.
Yeah,
You
I know.
sneaky bastard.
I ate it
Mhm.
fast.
He didn't want us to see him with that motion.
yo.
Hey, yo. Yeah, that was amazing.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to real quick mention that, yeah, Piedmontese does have these beef sticks. They're incredible. I think they still have the regular jerky too.
Mm.
Careful with that spicy one, though. That shit's really hot.
Mm,
Yeah.
coming in hot.
Coming from Mexican, that's real shit.
Yeah. Well, it's really, really hot.
Yeah. Okay.
But other than that, the beef sticks are incredible. They have the jalapeno one. They have a regular OG one. That's my favorite one there. You guys know we talk about the other stuff, the steaks and whatnot. Did you guys know that Joe Rogan and I both had tomahawk Piedmontese steaks on the Super Bowl?
Nice.
Joe Rogan got his hands
great.
on some Piedmontese.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
for
I
him.
looked over. I'm like, hey, me and Rogan on the same level. He used a smoker. So did I. We used different smokers, but hey, they still came out amazing.
You're eating the same steak.
Same steak. Yeah. It was just really
Steaks
cool
are
to see
high.
that. Yeah. So for more information on Piedmontese beef, please head over to Piedmontese.com. That's PIEDMONTESE.com. At checkout, enter promo code Power Project for 25% off your order. And if your order is $99 or more, you get free 2-day shipping. Highly recommend you guys check out the Power Project Deluxe Bundle so that we get a whole array of everything that we like from Piedmontese beef.
The other thing I want to point out is that, like, the more that you know, the more options you have to audible and to change what you're doing, you know? So sometimes people be very stuck. They'll get very stuck in their programming. They'll get a program from a coach and they got their 85% on there, and they maybe just haven't learned or haven't recognized that it's going to be really beneficial for them to scrap an exercise for the day and move on to something else. And as we're pointing out today, you can get a lot out of a little. And I think people kind of ask, like, oh, if you knew what you know now, would you change certain things about your lifting? Yeah, and I mean, I would have tried to. I don't know if I would have even listened to myself, right? Like, I like doing it the way I was doing it. But the conjugate system is amazing, but how beneficial and how much longer could I have lasted and how much stronger could I have been if I really took the conjugate to like a different level, and not even just a different level, but really listened to Louis Simmons, who no one ever really actually truly listens to. But if any book that he's ever written or any seminar that anybody's ever gone to, you'll have heard Louis say every about fourth week, you should pull back and do something completely different. So you might do a good morning one week. You might do a squat the next. You might do a deadlift variation the next week. Week 4, do something completely different, which might just be like some leg pressing or some hack squats. And they're not done in a max effort fashion. They're done, you skip the max effort work for that week and you do something, utilize a repetition effort method, which is what we're talking about more today, which is bodybuilding. You do some type of bodybuilding for that day. Then you get back to it. I wish I had the patience to do that. I did it a little bit on the bench, but I always felt like my squat, or a good example is I felt like my deadlift was too far behind to take that time to go and do that. But I knew it was the best thing for me to do. You know what I mean? Like it's hard because you know that these things are important. Kind of like sleep. I mean, that's the first thing that people give up when they want to get in better shape. They want to burn fat. They want to look better. Like, I'm going to wake up first thing tomorrow and I'm going to do cardio. And we've heard people say, I don't know if it's true, but I can understand where the logic comes from. You're better off with 8 hours of sleep and no cardio than you are with 6 hours of sleep and some cardio. I can buy that. I can buy that to a certain degree. You probably are burning more calories, but having that consistent 6 hours of sleep and the potential after effects of messing up your sleep forever, probably not great.
Yeah. You know, I mean, what you like, when you just mentioned you should have listened to Louis more, or better, I guess, what he said there just makes so much sense, because it's like when we're in it and you're trying to progress hard, you think that you need to just continue going hard, beat yourself into the ground. And then sooner or later, somehow you're just going to magically get better without taking a back off period. You know what I mean? It's like you're trying to train 7 days a week forever. You can't do that. So, you know, if you think about it, again, this is another way of being able to progress for the long term. If you're training hard for 3 good weeks, that week where you backed off a little bit is going to allow pretty much all of that to kind of set in. It's going to allow you to be able to recover well. And that might sometimes, like, I think I do this is that if you have like let's say 2 hard months of training, and let's say you were backing off every 4th week, maybe after 12 weeks, take a good 2 weeks and back down.
Mm-hmm.
Take a 2-week period. If you've had a pretty long stretch of hard training, take a 2-week period and back off a little bit. That's going to allow you to have another good 12 weeks of training along with deloads in between. That's so important because that's going to allow you to train for the long term. Because what happens if you don't do these deloads that you're talking about is you're going to get a natural deload, and that's called injury. And then you're forced to back off. You have no choice there.
Yeah, then you're screwed. But if you know about things like tempo training and you know about pauses and different things, let's say you've been squatting the last 3 weeks, you're getting into it, you're feeling good, you're getting stronger. When you're getting stronger, I don't want people to feel that the future is always bleak and that there's always something, coming up in the near future that's going to fuck you over. But that's been my experience, is especially when things are going really well. Like, I'm not saying to hope for it or to think about it too much, but it's probably coming. There's probably something around that corner. So when you start getting stronger, like, is your whole body on board with you getting like really strong? Like, sometimes it's not. And so when you do a lift week in and week out and you start really making progress, I mean, we've had people here hit like a 30-pound deadlift PR, and I've kind of been a little nervous or scared for them on the next one, because I'm like, we already got what we needed, like that today's a good day. Like, let's not, if we get the 50-pound PR, that would be cool, but we'll only get the 50-pound PR if I think you're ready for like a 70-pound PR. We're still staying still staying under the amount. But it's been my experience, like, I'm getting really strong, a bunch of stuff's going really, really well, and then just tear something slightly or some sort of slight tweak, and the wheels start to kind of fall off. So rather than have it be determined for yourself, or rather than have it be predetermined based off of an injury, make the decision yourself. A lot of times the champions are avoiding certain things. They're not necessarily always doing certain things. It's not always about doing. Sometimes it's about the choice to not do it. Like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go skiing in Tahoe when I have world championships coming. You know what I mean? Like, those little, sounds weird, but like, you got to be careful with some of the shit that you're doing. Pickup game of basketball might not be your best choice. It might not be your best option. You're 6 weeks out from a competition. You're really excited about it. You put so much time and effort. You already put like 6 weeks in. You're going to blow it by shooting some hoops. Shoot some hoops after the competition's over.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about like staying motivated though? Because a lot of people they want, like, oh, I'm going for a PR this week, and then whether they get it or not, but then the next thing they want to do is like, well, shit, I did that. Let's see what else I can do, as opposed to like, all right, we're gonna get close to it, and then we're gonna back off. I can sense that a lot of people would just be like, I don't know, man. No, just like, it's not as pumped,
Yeah, exactly. Blue balls.
I had no pump.
Yeah, you get like you get kind of like the no challenge blues, like you don't have a challenge in front of you, and so therefore you're like, it doesn't really matter. You might not even want to go to the gym at that point, because you're like, oh, I'm just supposed to do some like lat pull downs. Like, how lame is that? What you can do is you could shift your focus, and let's say that you've been on a tear with your deadlifts, things have been going really well, you're getting a little stronger. Well, that 4th week, you could do like as many reps as possible on something like a pull-up. So you can amp yourself up with something. Yeah, it's like not as exciting. It's not as amazing. But there's so many other options. You can maybe increase the amount of reps, or increase the amount of weight that you used on like a stiff leg deadlift, like just something different, some variation. I would just be careful with the amount of weight that you use, because your body is not going to really know the difference too much between a deadlift and a good morning and a squat. It's just going to know that it hurt and that it was heavy, and it's going to remember that. That's still going to sit in your system for a while. So, like a great example would be to do something. So you could do something beltless, which is going to force you to use less weight. Let's say normally you train with a belt.
I love that. Yeah.
You can go beltless. You can utilize some tempo training, and you could just have a different challenge. Say, I'm going to do 4 sets of 10 reps, stiff leg deadlifts with dumbbells. How much weight are you going to use on stiff leg deadlifts with dumbbells? Like 100 pounds. I guess if you're really strong, maybe you're grabbing like the 130s or 150s, but that's not good. That's 200 pounds total, as opposed to what were you deadlifting? You know what I mean? You're probably deadlifting 500-600 pounds, something like that.
think a great example, number one, of keeping yourself motivated is Kelly Starrett, who was just here. Because when you heard him talking about himself when he was deadlifting, right, he hit 4 different PRs on the day that we were deadlifting. And the first PR started with, I believe, 465. New knee. So that's the first time he hit that deadlift on the new knee, 465, new PR. His goal was to hit 500. Hit 500. Another PR.
I like where you're going with this.
And then we were like, you know, it looked really good. All of us were like, oh, Kelly, that was fast. So I think, you know, we put on 525 or something right that.
I think we went all the way up to 550
eventually. He touched 550. None of like, he went up to 550, but he touched something else before 550.
Yeah, 515, yeah.
515, 515. PR. Even though he's deadlifted like 6 something in the past. And then we were like, fuck, that was fast. Hit 550. PR. He definitely had more in the tank though. Yeah. And you could tell. But again, you remember you mentioned that's where you could back off.
Yeah, that's a good time to cut it right there. Yeah. Everybody felt good about it. He felt good. He was still safe. It's like that. That's where we shut her down.
Exactly. But he could have. This is the thing though. If you see that deadlift, because I think it's either on his IG or your IG on one of them, he could have done like 30 more pounds.
Yeah.
But it was a great place to back off and be like, I achieved this. I got this. This was the goal. Let's save all of that for another day. Let's go home safe.
I think a lot of times the main thing that we're lifting towards is a technical limit. You know, that's really what you want to lift towards is a technical limit, some sort of an almost breakdown or a slight breakdown. Last set, you know, last rep, you did 5s to 5 on rep number 24 and rep number 25. There was some breakdown there. Not a huge deal. We're probably going to be totally fine. And the more reps that you do, the more breakdowns that you could potentially have and still be safe. They're still not great. But if you did a set of 25, you could have the last 5 reps be a little bit shitty. You know, you don't want to get in a habit of it, but I could see where, you know, you're going for it. You're feeling it. You want something to be real intense. But just shifting your focus and having different PRs for different times is great. Kelly coming off of having a new knee, having a knee replacement. Also, some people will do it in accordance to like their age, their birthday, or their like this is my first time doing this at 50. This is my first time this is my first time in 2021. This is a 2021 PR. You know, you say like I haven't lifted that heavy in a while. So that'll get you excited too, because you're like, oh yeah, it's like, I haven't really lifted that heavy since like around Thanksgiving. So this is kind of cool. Then you also can have PRs with your body weight, depending on what you weigh. You know, you can say I'm at a lower body weight than I was 6 months ago. Let's see what I can lift at this, and that'll get you hyped up and excited.
Yeah, walking into the gym this morning, and it's just one of the things like I'm so grateful for everything I've learned on this podcast. A previous me would have definitely been like, all right, like it's go time. We haven't been in here in a hot minute. Like, let's destroy everything. But like, yeah, no, I want to be able to come back tomorrow. You know, like I want to be able to hang in there. But yeah, today it was like everything was a PR because it was post son's birth PR. You know, like that's kind of how I looked at it actually. And it was just like I didn't think about it, but that's just what happened this morning.
Absolutely. Like that's the thing. I think that's the big idea. It's for being able to do this for a really long time, because like let's just say it's a dumbbell incline chest press and you've been trying to increase the load for a while. Okay, so now in every single set, 3 seconds down, 3 seconds up. Let's see where you start with there. Well, your first, workout of that is going to be a PR because you've never done that before. The second workout, maybe you add a little bit of weight to that because it's much lighter than what you've done before and you do it successfully and you're able to actually start doing this. Well, now you're progressing at being able to control the tempo of this, but you're also probably getting a little bit stronger because of the tempo training that you're currently doing, right? So you had to back off that load, you slowed things down, and in doing that, you're going to overall be getting stronger over time.
Yeah, and like, is it, can you brush it with just with one stroke about like, how many weeks you should be progressing? Like you always talk about progressive overload to that deload, just trying to give people something to like kind of give them an idea of how long maybe they should be.
Yeah. I think the general rule is week 4, you usually back off a little bit.
Okay.
That's just
3-1-3-1.
Yeah, that's
Nice.
normal protocol, and I think it's based on some central nervous system type stuff, and it's based on like this 21-day cycle, but it just works. It just seems to be effective. I think you're better off. I never really liked the term deload just because like when you're in athlete mode, like I didn't like such words because I felt like that a lot of people were taking that as like let's fuck off, you know,
Yeah.
let's not really do anything. But let's make something perfectly clear. You could still be really intense on those days. You could
Mhm.
still have a really good training session, but it
That's
just might
true.
be in your best interest to have it look differently. Let's say that you like hitting a heavy bag or something. Like, well, go knock the fuck out of the heavy bag. Upper body day, you know what I mean? It's supposed to have a max effort upper body workout, but you strung together 3 really good workouts in a row, and you're like, oh yeah, I should probably do something different. Be careful with it because it might be like that pickup game of basketball. You know, if it's something you haven't practiced in a while. But also, what's wrong with grabbing the 80-pound dumbbells and just seeing like how many reps you can get with it on a flat bench? Like last time I tried this, I got 40, and you'd be sick to get 45, you know, or bang out as many push-ups as you can. They won't have the same intensity, but you could still push there, and your brain actually will get something different. For me, anyway, there's a huge difference between reps versus going heavy. I get way more out of doing reps from a mental capacity standpoint because you're not going to really give up on one. I mean, your body might give up on one rep, but your mind won't. Your mind's like, yeah, we can, yeah, you can do it. Like every once in a while, especially if you're newer and you're just getting started, you might not understand how much push it takes to do a lift.
Mm-hmm.
But once you're experienced, like that's gone. You're not going to ever like, you're not going to really mess up just because of the weight. You're going to mess up because your body's like shutting down and not able to really do it. It's not really your mind at play. But when you can't do 25 reps on a set of squats, sometimes it's your muscles, but a lot of times it's your mind.
Mhm.
Your mind's like, yo, like, what are you already fucking out of your mind? Are you crazy? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And so you're going to push yourself into those mindsets that I talk about where your brain and your mind is going to grow and expand, which is going to be a little different than what you're going to get from your singles, which you still might get a little bit of that because there is a big difference between seeing 315 on there and 365 versus seeing 405 on there. You get those 4 plates on there. And so that is something that your mind has to kind of overcome. But being able to defeat anything, doing supersets of like leg extensions, leg curls back and forth, and just having it feel like your legs are like internally bleeding and you somehow fucking you somehow muster up enough to get through it, and you're like, fuck you, you know, and you get through it all. It feels you feel so accomplished. That's way different than just doing a single. I don't know about you. I feel way better I love doing the heavy stuff. It's cool. It's fun. But man, I feel way better after doing the higher rep stuff. So use that as a challenge and use that to get you fired up.
Yeah, I always feel like you can just go all out more. I know it almost sounds backwards.
I think
what I
so,
mean?
yeah.
Like, okay, like this 135 is not going to kill me. Therefore, I'm going to keep going until I literally have nothing left. And, you know, usually got a good spotter.
You risk some muscle soreness, but you don't risk like really being fucked up. When you go heavy, you risk being really fucked up for a while, like where you're walking around like you're 70 years old.
What I love about what you're saying, and it sounds silly, but like you're giving people permission to not be like hashtag team no days off, you know, like you can like that shit on Instagram's not real. Like that person, like, I mean, we all look at Mike O'Hearn, right? And he doesn't put it out there, but like we know him that he's not literally going for a PR every day, even though what he's putting out there looks like he's like, oh my gosh, like I wish I could do that on a daily basis. But yeah, I think it's important because I know before I got here, I would just look at people on Instagram or YouTube and be like, oh my gosh, like I got to go hard every single day. Like there's no way I'm going to get bigger and, you know, faster, stronger unless I do put in like the crazy amount of work where, you know, pre-workout and all that good stuff.
I don't know how we got on the topic before, but I think you were mentioning something about EMOMs, right?
Oh,
Every minute on the minute.
Yeah. On the previous episode / future episode.
Oh yeah. So yeah, you were talking a little bit about it, but just think about how beneficial it would be for like a power lifter to grab a good sized kettlebell and do you know, first off, your typical workouts are typically maybe, you know, 60 to 90 minutes, some people 2 hours. But think about doing a 15-minute EMOM where you're trying to do every minute on the minute, do 20 to 25 kettlebell swings for 15 minutes. All right. It's great because it's loaded. It's great because it's now getting your hips going in explosive fashion, but now you're working the other side of things as far as cardio is concerned.
Yeah.
Think about how good you're actually going to feel after that and how actually beneficial. Okay, it doesn't cause as much fatigue as your normal training sessions do, but that is something different that's going to allow you to progress within that deload week. Like those are things you can be doing.
Well, and you also look at, some of what we're talking about here. You're trying to get the most out of the least in some regard. And I know that CrossFit really took a lot of things to the extreme, but let's just talk about the strength of some of these athletes. Some of these men and some of these women are very, very strong. I know that powerlifters try to dismiss it, but it's like these are drug tested athletes. I believe they're drug free. Who know? There's always people doing whatever, but the majority of the ones I've run into, I believe, are clean. And even regardless of that, they're not really huge people. You got like a 200-pound guy, and you got a girl that weighs 140 or something like that. These people are moving tremendous amounts of weight, and I want you to think about this for a minute. How are they able to move tremendous amounts of weight when they don't power lift? How often do they do singles? Probably if you see them at a powerlifting meet. Maybe they get thrown that bone, twice a year from their coach because the coach is like, all right, time to switch it up. Single rep max deadlift. But, the previous week they had a single reps max clean. And the week before that, they had a 9-mile run or, they have a lot of different things that they're held responsible for. And then look at how strong bodybuilders are.
Jeez.
It's a total myth. It's total bullshit that bodybuilders aren't strong. Bodybuilders are insanely strong. There might be a couple of them out there that aren't strong. And there might be some like recreational bodybuilders that aren't strong, but the bodybuilders that I've run into and the ones I've known are really, really strong, especially just on some of your average, like just assistance exercises, something like a lat pull down, there they are using the stack
or a full ROM leg press.
Yeah. Oh. Mike O'Hearn. Yeah. Doing leg press. Or O'Hearn doing those full range of motion, lateral raises that he does like all the way up over his head.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of these guys and a lot of these girls that participate in aesthetics are Jeremy Buendia. That guy's really, you don't get big and jacked like that. I think sometimes maybe you see like in contest stuff and you see them doing the cable crossovers. Like these guys are a bunch of pussies. Like, what are they doing? Like all they care about is their looks. They're not like lifting some crazy weight, but those people can I think Jeremy actually against what he was supposed to do, I think ended up tearing his pec pretty bad, but it was with a 405-pound bench. I mean, what does that guy weigh? Like,
he's not that heavy.
No, he's not that big, right?
Yeah.
I mean, these people, they can push big weight, and a lot of times it's because they utilize tempo training, they utilize a bodybuilding type method, or in the case of CrossFit, they just built up such a capacity that they can handle some of these big weights.
And, one thing that I want to mention about the bodybuilders, because I know a lot of bodybuilders too. It's like, if you only really focus on powerlifting and you see those athletes, you don't realize like a lot of these bodybuilders I know, they're not consistently trying to squat 500, 600 pounds. But if they were to, like a lot of them could, and they could do it really slowly with a lot of control. Because that's how they do almost everything. Right. Almost all of their movements in the gym, good bodybuilders, are done with great form and great control. Not everything's done with the 3-second down, 3-second up or anything, but they always make sure that form is key because their goal isn't just to move the most weight. Their goal is to feel the specific movement in the muscle group I'm trying to work. And if I want to be able to do that successfully, I cannot work with the heaviest load possible. If I was trying to push the heaviest dumbbell bench I could, I wouldn't only feel that in my pec. I'd feel that a little bit in my shoulder. I'd feel a bit in my triceps as I'm pushing. Right. But if I wanted to feel that on my pec, maybe I'm working with 50% of my max for 12 to 15 reps. And that's what these guys do all the time.
And if you didn't feel it that much, you can either you can grab a little bit more weight. You don't need a lot more weight, excuse me, or you can shorten your rest interval. You could change the tempo up slightly. Maybe as you're doing it, sometimes like the tempo stuff, you're just not feeling, it doesn't feel great. And maybe you have to figure out something slightly different. I remember working out with Hani and he just didn't care. Like he didn't care how we got there. He just wanted you to get a crazy pump.
Yeah.
And there was he didn't really count reps until you were really jacked up. Then he started counting reps, I think, just to give you a goal. But I remember the first exercise that I did with him at that gym up in San Francisco, he had me doing like, I was on a machine and I was doing some pressing. And he just wanted me to press to where his hands were. And so I was just doing the shortened range of motion press. And then he was like, all right, well, that's not doing anything to Mark because he's pretty strong with pressing motions. And then so he had me do like an isometric hold where I was pushing against his hands. And he was counting, you know, for seconds at a time, you know, 10 seconds. And then he had me do the partials again. Then I did it again. And then he was like, okay, full range of motion set at 12, you know.
Mm-hmm.
He was just trying to figure out like whatever way he could get me there.
Yeah.
And eventually it freaking crushed me.
Yeah.
That was some of it right there at this gym, yeah.
And so JC actually had asked on the live chat, what was the hardest part of the final month before your bodybuilding competition? This workout?
Yeah, this workout.
This workout killed you.
Yeah,
I remember.
this workout. Actually, this day was, there you go. Yeah, I'm trying not to cramp up. I'm like, how am I going to get up? This is so embarrassing. I'm like, how am I going to get up without cramping?
But you had some element at that point, huh?
You're right. I know. I didn't have it at that time. Actually, yeah, that's actually a great thing to bring up. This day was really, really hard because we went up to San Francisco and Hani had something going on. It was just hard to coordinate meeting him at the exact right time. And at the time, he wanted me doing 90 minutes of cardio, and I went and we were waiting for him. So I was like, I did 45 minutes of cardio. He still wasn't around, so I'm like, I'm just gonna keep going, I guess. I ended up doing all 90 minutes, you know, right then and there. By the time he got there, this is middle of summer.
Wow.
I brought change of clothes, but like I went right through everything. I had to buy clothes from this gym.
That's right. Oh
you
my
know,
God,
and
I
it's
remember.
just like getting weird. Like I'm working out with like no undies and no socks. 'Cause, like my socks were my socks were totally and completely drenched. Like it was just gross.
Damn.
And I was like, my feet are gonna get like fucked up. Like this is strange.
Mm-hmm.
And my shoes are getting all jacked up because it's just gross. But yeah, I'm like squishing around in my shoes and stuff.
It's like, why does Mark smell so bad?
Oh man, yeah. It's like my balls are right here. I don't have anything in between to block it out.
Oh my God.
That machine's pretty cool, whatever that
Skin
thing is.
on
Got
scrotum.
DJ in the back looking all jacked.
Yeah, he got in on this workout.
Mhm.
Hani fucked him up too.
Yeah, Hani's killer. Yeah, there he goes with all that shit. Like, great.
But it's just like you said, like the thing is like you were just mentioning, these type of workouts help you actually feel like Hani was looking for you to chase the pump. And a lot of people diss chasing the pump, but learning what will allow you to get blood to that area, to feel that muscle and to control that muscle will allow you to become a better lifter. Because like, yeah, there's a chest press, but now when you're doing back movements, like a single arm hammer strength row, a lot of people can't feel their lats doing that because they're just loading up too heavy.
Right.
But if you slow down and you try to feel, where is it that I can feel my lat work? Boom. Well, now you know what you're actually trying to do there. Makes a very big difference.
Yeah, and like, what's the science behind some of this? It's like, I don't know or care, you know, like it's you're trying just to have the best feel for it. And I've seen like actual fist fights over this stuff in gyms because people are arguing about how your triceps aren't working the best or whatever. Like at Westside, people like losing their mind about like how you're supposed to do an exercise. And Louis was always like, it doesn't really matter what you think of how the guy is doing it. If he's feeling it where he thinks he needs to feel it, then we're good. It's all that it's all that matters. You're just trying. What's your intent? Do you think you're getting there? I can't really judge whether you're getting there or not because we all move a lot differently. And so it's up to you to decide, you know?
Yeah, it's huge. Now, again, this is going to be another preface for the episode that we're going to have with Brian that's going to be coming up. But a lot of us lifters, whether we're powerlifters or bodybuilders, we definitely need to get better at breathing during our workouts because
Absolutely.
And I've felt this. I couldn't prove it, but like my recovery after all of my jiu-jitsu and my lifting sessions throughout these past few years has gotten better and better and better. Where at this point, I can do jiu-jitsu 5 times a week or 6 times a week. I can lift 3 times a week and I can go on and do that shit the next week again. Right. Whereas before I would feel like crap. Now I'm recovering better because I've been able to control my nasal breathing. And research has come out to show that there are functions that happen when you're actually controlling your breathing that help with muscle repair post-workout. And if we're able to do that, think about how much better you're going to be able to recover after a hard bodybuilding session, after a hard powerlifting session. Because we see a lot of bodybuilders lifting, like you'll see it in the gym, like you see all of this uncontrolled breathing, which leads to all this unnecessary fatigue. And you're probably getting less out of that session than you could have if you're able to control your breathing during that training session.
No, I think it's it makes a lot of sense. I mean, you're breathing all day, and so if you're optimizing your breathing, if you're working on it, if it's something that you're developing and in the process of working, I think it's worth it. It's worth spending the time there because you have to take so many breaths in a day, and if you're inefficient with that, everything else might be off. And it could be the same with like, you hear people throw around the term like metabolic syndrome. People have like metabolic syndrome. Just basically, in my opinion, it just means that you're not healthy enough to even really get started in the right direction towards like losing weight, which might take a while. And yes, you can reduce your calories, but if you reduce your calories, sometimes for some people that are like that are in that realm, they'll just have a hard time being consistent with it. And so you have to kind of think of some different things, but going to the basics is always going to be the thing that will get you there.
Yeah.
And if you can get a lot out of just slowing the weight down a little bit, doing a pause, if you can get a lot from learning how to breathe better, if you can get some good results for your body, mind, spirit, just from walking, like, why not do a couple of walks every day?
Yeah.
As we talked about in the upcoming podcast, we talked about just slowing yourself down for a minute and getting a couple breaths, just doing a little bit of like box breathing, 3 or 4 second, or 3 or 4 second inhale, 3 or 4 second pause, 3 or 4 second exhale, 3 or 4 second pause. Do that 5 times 5 and you're good. How long does that? Doesn't really take long, and it's worth it. It's worth putting that practice in. And I think the hardest thing is to try to figure out for yourself what's something that's so simple that it's almost impossible for me to say no to. Like, that's the key. Like, what can be so simple that I know that I'll do it? Like, if you were to do the amount of jiu-jitsu you do now on day 1, you would no longer be participating in jiu-jitsu.
I would not.
No, you would have came in and you'd been like, they hurt me. You would have had a different feeling about it. You would have had a bad experience. Yeah. Like, you would have been really banged up, and your coach would have been like, dude, I told you, you should only come in like once a week or twice a week. And, you didn't listen to him, and you just went all in on it. Same thing with coming into the gym. You go and start your workout first time ever in the gym, and you're like, I've seen people do 3 plates before. I think I can do that. And that's the first thing that you try. You're probably not going to be.
Then you're out of commission for months.
You're going to be fucked up.
Yeah. And I remember this now. Okay, there are 2 things that will kind of perk a lot of your ears up. When we had Andy Galpin on with, oh God, what was her name? She was.
Oh yeah, the one with one lung.
Yeah,
Kara something.
Killer KO.
Yeah, her last name was something special.
Did you? So close.
Rim job.
Almost.
Oh,
there's
everywhere.
All right.
Zevia everywhere. Now there's going to be Monster everywhere.
Nah, it's not going to be everywhere because I got. Oh God, there is Monster everywhere. Wow.
Told you.
Why do we mess up this studio?
It's cool that you guys don't clean, but I do.
I just want to keep throwing stuff over there
until you make it. Okay, I was going to mention.
Next time you guys shoot, I'm going to have to film it from like my phone so we can post it on Instagram.
No, I remember when Andy was here and we were talking about breathing, and then he was like, oh yeah, man, there's something special I have about that. I'll tell you about it later. Because he was alluding to the fact that when people are majority breathe through their mouth, which is a lot of people do during the day and they're over breathing, that they burn more glucose, more carbohydrates. But when people breathe through their nose, focusing on nasal breathing, that they burn more fat. That was in essence what he was trying to say, but he was like, I just can't prove it yet, but that's what we're thinking. And on our podcast with Brian McKenzie, he's like, overbreathers tend to burn more glucose, which leads them to want to eat more carbohydrates to replenish, right? Think about how big of an implication that has on your diet. So if, in essence, you kind of maybe focus on breathing through your nose and not overbreathing, you might not have even more of a, I guess, craving or need to eat as many carbohydrates as you do currently. Think about how big of an implication that has on getting leaner. If you naturally burn more fat because you are breathing through your nose, think about the implications of that.
What if it's just a tiny fraction of a little bit? That's still a lot.
It's still a lot. It's still a difference.
Still adds up, because he talked about, you might be breathing, nearly 30,000 times a day if you're not an efficient breather.
And if you are efficient, you're breathing about maybe 2/3 of that.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So it's just crazy.
Any improvement's 100% better. Right. Like, so, if you're regressing, all of a sudden you just stop that, you're good.
That's why I'm so hype about that.
That episode's so good.
As far as progressions, like when we're talking about breathing, like he talked about like progressions as far as like just a sled, focusing on pulling a sled when nasal breathing. As a lifter, first off, sleds have great parry over to strength. But now, instead of like using that sled and loading up as much weight on it as possible, like you were mentioning, Mark, put on a comfortable weight and pull the sled, focusing mainly on nasal breathing.
I'll give you guys a real simple example of like some of the stuff that we're talking about. I think it was last week. Last week I did some deadlifts and I pulled a sled in between, and I did a set of leg curls in between. Like I knew eventually after I did a couple sets, I knew I would get a little bit fatigued. The amount of weight I used on the deadlift was like 265. Like I didn't need any weight on there. I was kind of hoping that I would need more weight. As I was warming up, I was like, oh yeah, I'm sure I'll progress to like 3 plays. But after I did the full round and did the sled and the leg curl, I was like, if I'm really being honest with myself here, there's absolutely no reason for me to add any weight. Like this is plenty tough, you know?
Yep.
And I did 6 sets of it, and I tried to stay on course and not take too long with any of it and have kind of a short rest interval. And it was also working on nasal breathing. And it's like, you're going to be at different points in your life with different goals. You know, my goal right now is to not necessarily, I don't care that much about like what weight is on the bar. I care more about just being fit and feeling good. I want the workouts to allow me to feel better. Another goal is just to maintain and maybe even build up, maybe gain some hypertrophy. You know, over the last year and a half or so, I feel like my legs have gotten a lot better. I feel like I can build those up. I got some other goals with my arms and my shoulders. And so you have these goals, but then you work your way backwards from like, what's the actual goal? Because I think a lot of people are doing stuff. There's a lot of self-defeating stuff going on, which happens often. People sabotage themselves, but there's less obvious stuff that's just sitting there that would be very easy to correct if you just put a little bit more thought into it. Let's say you're trying to have bigger shoulders, right? And you go in the gym and you go to do a certain movement and it hurts and you're like, I'm going to work through the pain on this. Stop yourself for a second. And what kind of pain are we talking about here? Like, do you have like rotator cuff pain or something? You got something really crazy going on? Because correct me if I'm wrong, that doesn't sound like it makes a lot of sense that you want to be bigger, but you're doing more damage. You're doing more harm than good. You know, in the medical field, they say do no harm. Like sometimes that's their only goal. Sometimes is like, all right, the person's already fucked up. I don't fuck them up anymore. Do no harm. Sometimes that should be your goal in the gym. You go in there and you're like, oh man, I wasn't expecting any of this to be hurting so bad. Well, maybe that's where you switch over to using cables. Maybe that's where you switch over to only using bands. We haven't really even talked about bands yet, bands and chains. You know, maybe that's where you have an option to just switch into something slightly different for the day.
Absolutely. And then exactly like bands, you mess with chains much more than I have. I have messed with chains, but I love using bands for movements because like, for example, the GHR, like you don't necessarily have to add a load to that movement, but if you add a band to that movement, if you're trying to progress it over time, let's say you've added some reps, you add bands to that movement, the progression, you literally restart that progression and it gets harder and harder, but it's something that you can use on a lot of different movements to help out.
Reverse band is great. I don't know how many people listening have ever even messed around with reverse band techniques or a slingshot, but reverse band on a squat. I was just talking with Sully a couple days ago we were talking about some different movements, and he mentioned a reverse band squat, and I was like, holy shit, I need to start recommending that to people again. I totally forgot about that movement. I run into so many people that have hurt knees and hurt backs, and yeah, I understand like the lift looks different and you might feel like you're cheating or whatever, but fuck it, man. It's a squat. Like it's still it's still a great lift. Just some of the dynamics of it have changed a little bit. You think that's going to somehow make you weaker or somehow not allow you to get any better or not allow you to have some growth in your legs? Like, why wouldn't it? So what? The band's taking off 60 pounds out of the bottom. It's still a great resistance.
You're still getting all the eccentric.
Yeah, it's still gonna be challenging. Maybe it's not the most ideal way to prep for a powerlifting meet, but again, aside from that, I don't know why you wouldn't do some of that. Actually, when I was at Saying Strength a few weeks ago, I saw a guy doing hack squats, and he was doing it with a reverse band setup, and I was like, because it has like attachment for some bands, and I was like, damn, that was really smart. And so I stopped and I asked him why he was doing that, and he's like, my knees are just, he's like, my knees are kind of garbage. He's like, I love the movement. And he had pretty big legs. He had some wheels on him. And he was like, I love the movement. It's always worked my legs really good, but I'm just getting older and my knees hurt. He's like, so I use the band. And he's like, the only downside is I got to pile on a ton of weight. So it just takes him a little longer to do the exercise. They put like 4 or 5 plates on each side where maybe normally he would only use like 2 or 3. But yeah, there's so many different ways to do this stuff, and it doesn't have to hurt, and it really shouldn't hurt. You know, I when I did a seminar in Ohio, in Columbus, Ohio, this past, or just 2 days ago. And when I was talking, I was telling people that, you know, when they're going through their training, on a scale of 1 to 10, their pain level should never exceed 3. And really, you shouldn't have hardly any pain when you're training. I mean, ideally, you should have none. Every once in a while, if you're training for something, there's going to be something that's like just a little bit off, and you might have to work your way through it. How much you work your way through that level 2 or level 3 of pain, though, you got to really pay attention to, because you don't want that thing to turn into a 4 or 5 or be something that lingers around. What if that stupid thing comes around when you prep for your next meet after that, and your next meet after that? Like, that gets so frustrating. It gets old really fast. So you might even have to make a decision on what you want to do with that. But when I said that, a couple people, you know, later asked some questions, and they were like, I was really shocked when you said that, because I thought this is powerlifting. I thought you need to kind of, you know, lift through it. And I'm like, you do need to lift through it from a mental perspective. Yeah, you can't be, you know, you can't be a wimp about it. But at the same time, if you have an actual injury, you need to be really cautious.
You know, taking even a step back from reverse bands or a regression from it isn't something that like you do all the time, but it's something that like Jen Thompson, she does when she unracks the holds, so to adapt to be able to hold that type of weight above you. So think about doing that with you're not squatting, but think about, let's say your max is 500 and you just want to unrack 530, just unrack it. Like, you're not going to do that all the time,
right? But
it's going to allow you to kind of get used to that feeling of that and tightening under that load on your back, right? Put that shit back.
yeah, for real.
You know?
Jen Thompson's a
Jesus
fucking
Christ.
She did like 515 or something, I think she was doing holds with.
Yeah. I remember I couldn't even comprehend what I was looking at when she was at ST doing that. It was so crazy.
Yeah.
She's actually going to be on a markbell.com Super Friend interview coming up soon. I don't know exact date.
She is so nice, and she's so freaking funny. She is so funny. And it was great meeting her and her husband. And her husband is like, she's got a dynamic personality. She's pretty fun, and she likes to talk trash. And she says a lot of stuff that you're not thinking that she would say. And you kind of do a double take. You're like, huh? But her husband is just very like stoic. And you're like, is he okay? Like, is he good? But he's like a paramedic or something. He works in like an emergency room or something. So he's seen it all. So he's not worried about much. But yeah, what a great couple, and what an unbelievable lifter. I think she's pressed 314 or so, I think is one of her world records. She has multiple world records. 314-pound bench press at like 132 or maybe even 123 maybe. I forget what the body weight is.
Makes no sense. I mean, it makes sense, but like when you look at it,
it just doesn't make sense.
I just remember her shoulders were crazy. Like the rest of her, she looked built. She looks very fit. She looks great. But I was like, damn, like, okay, now I can see where some of that power is generated from. Generated from those front delts. Like, holy crap.
And this is where, by the way, guys, like with all these different types of progression that we're talking about, if you aren't taking the time to maybe just kind of record some of the things that you've done in the weight room, like write it down, put it in a notebook or something, it could be kind of hard for you to actually see that you're progressing. Just like when somebody's trying to lose, like, I guess they're trying to get in better shape, right? And they're only using the scale, but the scale isn't moving and they're not taking measurements. So after a few weeks, they don't think they're making progress, even though their waist has gone down by 6 inches, right? Because they're just not taking the time to measure things. That could really make you feel that you're not progressing. But if you just take the time to write some of these things down in a notebook, you could see that, wow, 2 weeks ago, I did this for only 3 sets. This week I did it for 4 sets and I added 5 pounds. Like, wow, that's a big deal. Right. So just take the time to do this so that you can make sure and see where you're progressing.
Yeah. You also don't have to perpetually chase after lifting more. Like you can, if you had a young kid that was like 15, you just started lifting and you're like, all I want you to do is squat, 185 or something. And they use 185 for sets of 5, and then you progress them to a little bit more reps, and then ultimately have them doing sets of 10, and then you have them shorten the rest period. They could use the same weight for probably a really long time,
Yeah.
and make a crazy amount of progress. I've noticed that for myself. I noticed that with other lifters. They're doing a similar weight on a lat pull down than they've been, because it's not necessarily just about the weight. It's also about how you do it. And how you do these lifts, you start to get better at how you execute them over a period of time. You can put more into them. I was watching our boy Kenny Kratom, do some.
That's his name, Kenny Kratom.
Like
do some lifts the other day, and he's 19, and he's an absolute beast. Really, really strong, really well built kid. But he's doing these squats, and he's trying to like get a feel for it, and he's trying to like do it with different stances and different way, and he's doing speed work for the day. And I watched him do the lift a couple times, and he's getting some critiques. One of those days that gets to be frustrating. You get a critique from every different person in there. Then you think everything you're doing is wrong, and you're kind of hearing conflicting information and stuff. And he asked me kind of what I thought. And I said, well, I just think you're going a little bit too light, which I don't usually ever say. Normally I think people are going too heavy. But in his case, he's still a novice lifter. He's still fairly new, so he doesn't know how. Crazy though. I know.
Yeah,
he's an absolute mutant. He's a total freak, and he has no acknowledgement that he's a mutant.
That is so funny, but it's true. He's like a. I don't want to go that far and say he's like a young John Cena, but like
he kind of is like a young John Cena.
He kind of is, right? He's just like, oh. Like, fuck, dude, come on.
Yeah. John was a mutant from forever, but Kenny is jacked, and he's got some good size on him. He's got a lot of strength. And I think so part of my point here is that he's trying to do what everybody else is scheduled to do, but he's fucking different than all of them. I mean, he is, right? Like he's just different. And so I'm like, he's using like 320 pounds for his squats. I'm like, I think you need like 365. He's like, really? But the whole reason is that the weight that he was using wasn't challenging him enough. And if you're an advanced lifter, if you're a really advanced lifter, you could take 185 pounds and make it feel like 1,000,000 pounds, and you could put tons of force into it. And you can get down on the bench and you can explode into the lift like somebody's never seen before. And like somebody else could go, what the hell was that? Like that was crazy. When you're new, you don't know how to do that. You don't know how to. So what I was seeing with him is like, it wasn't like he was really getting lazy. It's not even the right term, but the weight just wasn't challenging enough for him. It wasn't challenging him to get tight. He's not able, I guess my main point here is that he wasn't able to recruit the motor units, the motor fibers that he needs in order to be able to flex as hard as he wanted to in order to do the lift the right way. And the quickest thing that would help him the best is just to add more weight to it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. But what you said that I was like, that's super true, is that like, yeah, no, when a lifter does become more advanced, they know how to get more out of less weight. Like, again,
yeah, absolutely.
The person you think about's Mike, but like, it's almost like, how I was mentioning that, okay, you want to have a notebook so you can make sure you're progressing. There also needs to be a sense that you need to chase the feeling too. Like you need to focus on, okay, this session, if this was another back session, did I feel this as much in my mid back, my upper back, my rear delts, the way what I was trying to aim for? Did I feel all those movements there, or do my rear delts not feel activated today for some reason? Okay, why is that? Maybe I was actually going too heavy. So, okay, let me lighten that load and focus on the rear delts instead and get that feeling. Because at the end of the day, if you're trying to work on certain muscle groups, there's not just the volume you're doing, but there's also the feeling of fatigue in the muscle group. And you got to pay attention to that. And if you're not feeling it there, you're doing something wrong.
Right. And there's ways of getting, more from your training through range of motion, as we were talking about in the beginning of the show. Don't forget that the more that you move the weight, the more volume that adds to your workout as well. I think we all love to work hard. We all love to get into these workouts and have a really brutal workout. I was mentioning to somebody a couple days ago. I'm like, oh yeah, I did like, a few sets of like 60 reps or something. I just said it in passing. It's just something I just kind of threw out there because we were talking about different rep schemes.
Mm-hmm.
And then they told me like a couple days later, they're like, man, I couldn't walk. And I was like, how many? I was like, oh, well, how many sets did you do? Because we didn't really talk about it. I just mentioned it. They're like, I don't know. I did like 8 sets. And I was like, oh. I was like, I only did 1.
8 sets of 60.
Yeah. I did 1 hard set. I did it on I did 1 hard set on a leg press and 1 hard set on like a hack squat or something like that.
Sounds like Doug Fouché.
Yeah, it was just right. Like, that's right. It sounds like Doug Fouché's workout from Charles Glass, right? 60 freaking 8 sets of 60. So I was like, damn. Jeez. But when you're increasing range of motion on some of these movements, you're going to be increasing the volume. If you're adding repetitions to it, that's when you got to bring the sets down. Mm-hmm. It's all it's all fairly simple to understand and to grasp, but the main thing on a lot of this is it's pretty easy to get a lot out of a little. Mm-hmm. And you can think up your own ways on how you can screw yourself over to make the lift harder. Throwing on some fat grips is a great example. 135-pound deadlift. 135-pound deadlifts are really easy. All right, well, what if we did a deficit deadlift? What if we did a snatch grip deadlift? And what if we used the fat bar? Now 135 pounds, even though it's light, what if we did 3 sets of 30? Now we might be in trouble. It's like, can I hold on to that for that long? You're like, I don't know. I might need to use 95 pounds instead of 130. So quickly the dialogue becomes way different where you're like, ooh, I don't know if I could hold on to that double overhand for how many reps? Like, I never tried it before. I don't know.
And it's a safer way to make a progression because you're just not working with the astronomical load that you shouldn't be handling.
That's what I've been trying to tell Andrew this entire time, but he's not listening.
Nope.
Sitting over there thinking about his baby. Again, selfish.
Yeah.
Nah.
Again, like I just sometimes think back. I know you mentioned like, is there anything you change? And you mentioned like the backing off that, or those back off weeks that Louis was talking about. I think
it wouldn't hurt me.
It wouldn't hurt you.
No.
I think that like I was pretty okay at not attacking heavy loads when I shouldn't, but I would back off even more. That's the thing I would change. I would have a little bit more reserve on when I worked with those loads, because there were points where I definitely shouldn't have done that. I can remember the days where I was just like, oh shit, I shouldn't have touched that load.
I know it's probably hard to imagine with jiu-jitsu because you're in it, but would it be a good idea just to every once in a while, like pull up to jiu-jitsu, get everybody hop in your car and just go do something completely different? Just, hey, look, we're all going to go for a walk today instead. Like everyone be pissed because they want to train. Mm-hmm. Or I know a lot of the guys there don't lift, so, hey, I'm going to teach everyone how to lift or something, just something totally different than what they're used to.
No, that wouldn't be a bad idea. Like I've told you guys about this.
It would spawn a lot of creativity, I bet. I bet you guys would get talking about, like if you went on a hike, it sounds ridiculous, but you take the whole squad on like a hike. Mm-hmm. You guys would probably just start yapping away at some point about some new hold or whatever. And that would have been something that you probably wouldn't have talked about if you were in class, because you were like, the people have anxiety over the drills. Oh shit, I got to face Nsima again. Like you're thinking about all these different things.
Yeah, you're focusing on the same things all the time. And no, what you said there like makes total sense, because it's like when I've mentioned this to both of you guys outside, but when I notice like when I'm training, and then when I have to take some time off because like I just can't go to the session, the next time I come back, new things are thought up. But I even remember like I had that thought yesterday because I train on Monday, Tuesday. Today's Thursday.
Yep.
Yeah, I train Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday.
That's great that you got that.
Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. But no, I trained Monday through Wednesday, and yesterday on Wednesday, I was thinking, I'm like, this wouldn't have been a bad day just not to train, just because I was a little bit stale with what I was doing. Like a lot of the things that I was doing on the mat, I was just like feeling, there's nothing really different going on here. Okay, I'm gonna take a day off, not train tomorrow, and just like, get my mind off of it. And then when I notice when I do that, when I come back, I'm able to have a fresh perspective. I'm able to do new things, right? And I think that that's exactly what you're mentioning there. It's like you can't just keep attacking something over and over and over again. You got to do some different things so that thing can have a chance to progress.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't feel like it, don't go.
Don't go.
Yeah. If you're somebody that's trying to develop a habit, you have a different set of rules, a different set of circumstances. If you're in and out of the gym a lot and you're trying to get a rhythm, you might need to go for like 90 days straight. Like you might need to, you might need to go a lot. You might need to go 6 days a week for a little bit until you kind of get over that hump. But in general, if you're just like, man, I don't know, you just don't go. Just don't go. I was talking to somebody at the seminar too about their diet. And I was like, what's your main issue? Because this woman is probably like 55 years old, looks great. She does some powerlifting, trains with Matt Wenning. And I was like, you already look like you're in pretty good shape, but she wanted to be in better shape, just like the rest of us trying to always get better. And I was like, well, where's the weakness? Like, what's your poison, And she's like, I just have a sweet tooth. I just love, okay. What's the sweet tooth? Like, what food are we talking about? She's like, I like chocolate. I like ice cream. I was like, I love all that stuff too. It's amazing. And I said, well, what's like, where do you get this from? Like, where, is this just sitting in your house or something? She's like, yeah, I buy it here and there. I said, okay, well, you can avoid buying it, right? And maybe you can just buy it here and there and make it part of your diet rather than it's like this wrong thing to do when you desire it and it's sitting in your fridge and sitting in your pantry, And she's like, I think I can do that. And I said, well, let's just do it right now. Like, let's just pick a couple days. Like, when do you feel like eating this stuff? She's like, it's usually on the weekend. I said, all right, well, 2 days in a row, probably not great. Let's see if we can spread it out. How about which day is better, Saturday or Sunday? She's like, Saturday would be great. I said, all right, Saturday, have a piece of chocolate, and or some type of ice cream, like I was like, be reasonable with it. I'm not going to tell you the amount, but just be reasonable with it. And then, and then another day, like pick like a Wednesday or something in the middle of the week. So you're not feeling like an urge for it, and see how that works out. A lot of times you have to placate to what your body is trying to tell you that you want rather than smacking yourself on the wrist and being like, dude, I can't believe you fucked that up again. Like, why are you acting like this? Why'd you eat all that food from the pantry? Like, what are you doing? We tend to be like really mean to ourselves when we're in situations like that. But imagine if you can, because not everyone's the same. Like for some people, this is a slippery slope. Imagine just opening up the playbook a little bit and saying like, this is an option. You can do this here and there. And I think over a period of time, if you're practicing a lot of the stuff that we talk about on this show, there'll be a lot of times where you're making such good progress where you're not going to want to. You're going to be like, I ate my protein for today. I got my walks in. I got some training in. I feel pretty good. I have a little bit of an opportunity to cheat on Saturday. I'm just going to wait till Saturday rather than do it on Wednesday or whatever. Yeah. Just incorporate it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's important to not look at food as good or bad, right?
Yeah, I think it can be, yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, like right now, like I can have whatever because I don't have anything scheduled. Like it's not bad. But if I had a photo shoot next month and you see me eating pizza and be like, dude, that's not going, that's not helping you. You're hurting yourself right now. Like then, yeah, that's bad. Like it gets a slap on the wrist.
Well, you could even just attach a rule to it though. Like just not that having pizza would be productive towards getting towards a photo shoot, but having a slice, can you do it though? Like that's the hard part is you have to know yourself, know thyself. You have to know yourself. Can you do that? It's a recommendation, but it's not a one size fits all. It might not work might not work for everybody, but there are a lot of people that can do that. And if you had another day scheduled where it was like 2-3 days later, you got to do something again, it might be a little easier for you to be like, I had the one that was good. And if you only know that you have like a portion, like we talked about the half of the Ben and Jerry's, and I got a technique for you guys. It's great.
Ooh, okay.
If you know about a portion size that you have and you understand that it's still available in your future, you might be pretty pumped about it, So
okay, let's hear this technique. Yeah, let's hear this.
I swear to God, I think females have the funniest perspective when it comes to foods and when it comes to food. This one girl at the seminar, I talked about how you said that you put your Ben and Jerry's back, and I thought to myself like, man, that's really weak. Like he's poor guy's going downhill. And then I found myself doing the same thing, like not even necessarily because I wanted to, but I felt like I should, I was like, I don't really need the rest of it. It tasted good enough, And I'm like, man, I'm a pussy. So I, put the other half back in the freezer. So I talked about that during the seminar, and a girl came up to me afterwards, and she goes, "You know what I do?" She's like, with Ben and Jerry's or anything that tastes really good, she goes, "I just destroy it." I was like, "That's what I used to do. I used to destroy the whole thing." She's like, "No, I eat like half of it." She's like, "And then I just pour soap all over it, and I wash it out and I throw it in the garbage."
No.
She's like, "I have to destroy it so that I won't touch it again." She's like, "I know that I'm going to eat it later on."
That is actually a really good idea. If you know yourself, like
Yeah.
you were just mentioning, destroy it.
I know you're destroying some yummy food that's delicious, and but look, man, you know that it's gonna cause some harm to you, so you might as well just fucking destroy it, light it on fire.
Yo, that's brilliant.
It's not very
Whoever
cost
you were-
effective, but
Great job. Whoever you are, I think we figured out something for a lot of people.
Yeah, was that amazing?
Yes. It's like
You're just like just spit in your food.
Yeah.
No, I
Then
told,
you move the spit to the side, you're like
Yeah.
scooping it
I
out.
could work around that.
I know these people, the Ken Rise, Eric and his wife, family food dude. They like to go and eat different types of donuts, but they will buy dozens. They will take a bite and they will throw it out. They will take one bite to taste the donut, and they'll throw out everything else.
You got to throw it out with like next to like rotten meat or something.
Yeah.
Or else you go in the trash.
Yeah.
Because if it's still in the box, you can
yeah.
easily dive back in there.
When they've
Like,
told-
yeah, the garbage ain't that bad.
Oh my god.
It's next to a diaper. I don't know.
It's my garbage, though. If it was someone else's, it'd be weird.
Yeah. When I heard that, I was like, how could you? But after a while, I was like, that's actually really self-aware.
Dude, we need to go like eat donuts and like take a bite of one and then put them on a table and then punch them.
But you'll
Like,
just eat the.
Get your germs all over it or something, like rub your hands all over it.
It's my germs.
No, I know, but we got to do it to each other's.
Oh, okay.
Well, it's just each other's germs.
Yeah.
So, like I said,
We're
it's
pretty close.
my germs.
Yeah, we are. We have kind of morphed into one giant Mexican white black person,
Yeah.
I think.
Oh man, yeah. That's pretty much what this is now. That's what this is.
No one's listening though,
It's
right?
gotten better.
No one's listening. No.
Oh, there's a good amount of people on the live stream. I mean, I think they're.
Is Bill on there?
No, Bill said he had to leave.
Oh.
Yeah.
Talking about Bill Belichick's about to be super useless.
What's he
Uh-oh.
doing? What happened?
What?
happened?
I mean, okay, so think about this. Tom Brady and I've done some research since, because football is
Is
not
Bill
my greatest
Belichick-
subject.
he-
Is Bill Belichick mad?
I think he's pissed. I think he's absolutely pissed. Because, dude, all right, all this time, everyone's like, oh my God, he's just been great because he's had this great coach. Then he goes to this fucking random team, brings a few of his teammates, is like, let's win another one, guys. And he does.
Yeah.
Now Bill better win a Super Bowl next year, or else everyone's going to be like, he was the most overrated coach of all time.
Yeah, the Patriots kind of sucked.
Yeah.
For a big part of the year, they pulled it together a little bit towards the end, but they kind of sucked.
He's going to cheat probably a lot more coming up.
Oh, well, didn't they do something to the balls or
deflate
something?
the ball and stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
Every time
There's a couple things. Yeah,
they did a lot.
Dude.
South Park had the funniest skit on them. They were like, let's not try to cheat this year. Let's do it like, let's be legit. He's like, and then what happened? He's like, they lost. He's like, so shit, yeah, nobody cared about them anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But
Dude, I'm like, again, I don't know a crazy amount of football, but like I did a lot of like looking up and stuff on Tom Brady recently, and I'm just like, God damn, this man, like, pick 199. Like,
can you go to his Instagram?
oh, his
Yeah.
Instagram's fun.
So, I mean, Tom Brady's done a lot of cool shit in his life,
Uh-huh.
but he has a picture where I'm like, that's fucking awesome.
I'm curious. What is this?
I don't know if we'll see it right here. If we don't, I'll just describe it, but I think we'll find it. Keep scrolling. You're such a good scroller.
I just don't want to go too fast.
Anybody ever told you that before?
No. I don't want to be remembered for
Got those-
a
got
scroller.
those
well, I
kids.
mean, I
Yeah,
think
yeah. We got the motion down.
think about what you're doing when you're
Mhm.
scrolling, Andrew. Just think about
Mhm.
your finger real quick.
Mhm.
Okay, that's all we need to talk about there. Let's look for this picture.
Shit.
Oh no, that finger's tired. I gotta switch over, and I'm still good with it.
He's got a pretty good Instagram going here.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing it. Anyway, he just had this sick picture of him and his family on the beach,
Mhm.
and
Mm.
it's just this.
Oh, I did see that.
It's
Oh.
like from behind, right? And you see the kids, and like everybody looks perfect, and then there's his wife is just smoking, and I'm like, this is better than any Super Bowl trophy he's got. Like, this is fucking sick. He's
There
got
we go.
this picturesque family with this supermodel wife. I'm like, this is some victory right here. Yeah, and the dog in the shot and everything.
Oh,
it's awesome.
That's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that guy has it all, huh?
He's got all those rings. He's getting all hammered. Hey, what's up with Facebook? You hear about Facebook?
No.
I don't know, but they don't like us. That's for
You're
damn
not
sure.
allowed to say fat anymore on there.
Are you kidding?
I swear, I think there. I don't know what happens to you.
Is
on
that
there,
hate
but
speech now?
I think
Could
so.
be.
I think so. She ain't fat, bro.
Wow. No, that's really stupid.
And you're not even allowed to say it about yourself. Which I think was already kind of happening on Instagram.
What if you go to Fat Burger or you have one of those ice cream sandwiches?
Oh yeah.
Well, I think those are just called Fat Boys, right? Or am I
maybe
imagining things?
Fat Burger.
Why you should stop using these Facebook? Okay, no. Where do you?
No.
Fat.
Well, I'm honestly not even surprised by that, just because all these companies are trying to control the things you say, and if you say something, it might not be something that they think is right, so they'll censor you.
Well, it's not very productive to call somebody else fat. You know, it's not very productive to call. Not really productive to call anybody names necessarily.
True.
However, every once in a while, we hear about people that were called names and they end up being successful because were like, fuck that, I'm going to go the opposite direction, or they, later discovered that wasn't true or something like that. But I think that the effort or what these companies are trying to do, I don't think is bad necessarily. No? What's really tough though is when you're a consumer and then someone pulls something away from you, you're like, wait, what? Like, why can't I do that anymore? And I don't know what the main thing is that they see about fat, but maybe it's in a different context than what we're thinking. Because like, if you're trying to share with people on how they can be less fat, or you're trying to even talk about yourself and say, hey, I used to be really fat, I didn't love that, and I'm trying to move in another direction. But I guess maybe maybe it falls into a category that we don't understand quite yet. Because when I was a kid, it was very common to say gay, like, oh, that's gay. And you don't say it anymore because you're like, well, that upsets a subset of people, and there's really no reason for me to use that. I didn't really even mean or know exactly what I was saying.
Exactly.
But it was derogatory. Like, make no mistake about it. It's derogatory, and it could be offensive to some people. So I choose now just to not use it. I just don't say it. And it's up to each individual to make that decision. But I think when a company pulls a word away from you, then you're like, I don't know about that. I can't say gay anymore, or I can't make a joke with like, if it's amongst two friends and you talk like that here and there, whatever words it is that you say amongst your family, amongst your friends, those are words that everyone's in agreement with, that these are okay.
Yeah.
Normally, right?
Yeah.
And so on Facebook, we could have a message back and forth. I could say something, you could be totally fine with it, but now somebody else is censoring it. And that's where it gets to be really weird.
This is the thing. And this is why this stuff's so funny. I'm going to use your example of, oh, that's gay, because, I'm going to say I was guilty of that in, high school, middle school. People would say that. Everyone would say that. But over time, you learn, hey, that's actually not the best thing to say. And why do you learn that? Because somebody reprimands you publicly for saying it, not because a company takes away your ability to say that word and you're like, what? Oh, okay, I'll do it over here in a shadowy corner.
Well, and furthermore, somebody educates you on why. Like, hold on a second. Let's talk about why. Yeah. Let's talk about why it's bad to say it that way. And then you're like, fuck. Then you're like, I'm sorry. Like, I didn't know. I didn't mean, maybe you kind of halfway knew. But now you really understand. You're like, all right, well, I'm going to change the way that I'm going to work on it. I'm a work in progress.
Yeah. It's not a good idea to take away people's agency to say things, because what happens is now these people who you're taking away their speech are going to go and they're going to find their own place where they can say all the shit that they want to say. But now no one else knows what's going on and they won't be reprimanded for it. Just like all these people with unpolitically correct ideals. Hey, if they put something out there, the court of public opinion is going to come in and say, hey, and have a conversation about it. Hey, that's not okay. That is okay.
A great example of it all is, like, has racism gotten a lot worse in the last 2 years, or has it just been shown a little bit more? Has it been exposed a little bit more? Which is what? Really fucking positive, so that we can talk about it more. It's great. You know, there's a lot of things that suck about it, but it's great that it's, did all of a sudden like a bunch of Americans become more racist? You know, maybe some people believe that because of Trump or whatever they want to, whatever the QAnon and all the weird stuff going on. I don't believe that to be true. I think all that happened was there was a lot of situations that got exposed. People started talking about it more. And now we're overcorrecting, you know, in another direction, which happens quite a bit and it's probably long overdue. And by another year or two from now, we'll probably be in a better spot for it.
There's a lot of public education going on because things were allowed to be said and shown. But now, if it's taken away, who knows what's going to be wrong? They're just you're going to have people doing their things somewhere else, and they're going to think they're okay. This company, fuck them, but they won't be able to be shown why they're wrong. Or maybe why it's okay. It's stupid to me. Stop censoring speech.
Yeah,
don't.
They'll all go to Parler, and then that'll get shut down.
And Parler will get shut down too.
I went to listen to something one day. A guy was talking about slavery, and he was talking about it's his belief that it wasn't a form of racism. And I don't know in what context. I don't know what he was talking about exactly. I don't know if he was talking about slavery here in the United States or somewhere else. I went to go look at it. It was taken down. And I'm like, I would like to learn more. Like, what was this guy's point? What was he trying to say? Like, I was interested to kind of hear it. Like it, to me, it didn't really make any sense, but I wanted to learn more about it because maybe he's got a point there. I don't have any idea. Now I'll never know.
No, that's the thing. You got to give people the ability to agree or to disagree with it. Because if his point was like, it wasn't a form of racism because every single culture had slavery. Well, one thing to think about is like other cultures that had slavery enslaved their own people.
Right.
There is a difference between bringing a boat of people, a specific colored people from one country and enslaving them only versus being in Greece and enslaving a bunch of other Greeks. There's a difference, right?
And you go back to, you know, what we've talked about on the show before about like, what is racism? Like, what does it mean? And that would be the very definition, because these other people, for some reason, think that they have agency and control over these other people that they don't think can do similar types of work, and they're not allowing them to be free. They're enslaving them.
They think they're intellectually inferior because of what they look like. That is racism.
And I think that part doesn't get talked about enough. I think everything is always brought up as being racist, and you're like, I don't really know if that's necessarily falls into the definition. I know what people are talking about.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it's sometimes people are being selective with who they hang out with, and there's a lot of other things that are awful that aren't necessarily 100% racist all the time. They don't always fit the exact bill. But I think talking about all this shit's great.
Yeah.
I love formats like this where you get to talk about it. You get to hear Joe Rogan talk about it. You get to hear other podcasts talk about these things. And hopefully people can let it rip and not get over censored. You know, I think we're still in jail of some sort.
Yeah.
Which I don't even really know why. Like, we're not that controversial, I don't think.
We had some guests that said some things that the algorithm didn't like.
Yeah.
the old COVID-19 thing, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, now we're back. No, just kidding.
We got a bleep mark saying that.
I know, right? No, I think I don't know. It's weird getting in and out of jail, YouTube jail, but doing everything we can to get back out. Everyone watching the live stream, you guys are helping us out right now, so we appreciate that.
Appreciate y'all.
Hell yeah.
Take us on out of here, Andrew.
I will. And actually, since we did 2-a-days, we're going to read off another comment, and this one is pretty interesting. This one's from,
hey now,
on the community tab, we just said last comment on this post gets a shout out on air, and we said maybe we'll read what you post, and this one's just funny. This one's from DJ, not our DJ, another DJ.
Oh, wow.
Says, winner is the first person to not jump or flinch when the other person touches their leg.
I was like, what? I love stuff like that.
I was gonna say Nsima. I think this is some college days Nsima type stuff.
We ain't going into that.
I was going for a single leg.
Experimental phase. I mean,
Thigh
Let's talk
wars.
about thigh war. Yeah, let's.
You're
Hey,
gonna get
Andrew, want to do the outro?
So many DMs from
Who was the
dudes, you're
guy
so
with the
lucky.
shampoo bottle in his pants?
Oh shit!
We gotta have him on the show.
Hey, he isn't. He might be in SEC. I don't know. Just have a podcast about his giant dick.
It's like this, right?
Yeah.
It was about that
Bigger.
length, little, not as thick, but about that length. Yeah, it was disgusting.
Oh my god.
Yeah, dude. Serious. And I'm not even joking.
Oh, whoever he's with now, poor them.
Suffering.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It always comes back to the wiener.
Yep. On that note, thank you everyone for checking out today's episode. Please make sure you're following the podcast at Mark Bell's Power Project on Instagram, at MB Power Project on Twitter. And shout out to Piedmontese for sponsoring this episode. Code Power Project at checkout for 25% off your order. Links down in the description and podcast show notes. My Instagram is at I am Andrew Z. So is my Twitter. Nsima, where are you at?
And Nsima Inyang on Instagram and YouTube. At Nsima Inyang on Mark.
At Mark Smelly Bell, strength is never weakness, weakness never strength. Catch you guys later.